got stuck in the summer of 1986 time glitch. I think I have the same routine every day. I get up at about 5 a.m., eat something real quick, and watch a little TV, get dressed, head to work. I have one roommate, and we've had this apartment for 2-ish years, so about 7 or so months ago, February, I got up to get ready and everything felt very off. I couldn't put my finger on why, but everything felt creepy. Then I noticed the counter was a tray of American flag napkins, some homemade cookies with red and blue icing on them in the shape of stars, and some what I assumed to be off-brand M&Ms. I thought it was weird since it was still winter for my roommate to randomly leave out 4th of July stuff. I get some food on and turn the TV. I get some food and turn on the TV and notice it's just random channels. I can't get to any of the streaming apps. It's just regular TV, but old. It's old-looking commercials, newscasts, and one of them actually said something about a 4th of July sale. I was so freaking confused. I finally get to a weather channel, and in the corner of it, there's the date. July 3rd, 1986. I thought for sure it was like IDK, a nostalgia channel or something, but every single channel I turned to, it was all old commercials and TV shows. Mind you, I was born in 2003, so I'm not too familiar with 80s stuff, so at the time it just looked old to me. LMAO. At this point, I'm freaked out. Try to call my mom. I'm not sure why. I just felt like this was who to call for some reason. When I go to dial her number, my phone just keeps trying to dial, but it never actually connects to the call. Now I'm really bugged out. I'm starting to panic a little now and go to wake my roommate up. On my way to her room, I stop in the hallway and see a woman in about her late 70s crossing the hallway, holding a tray with something on it. She goes from my roommate's room to mine and disappears. It didn't look like a ghost. That I assume. IDK. I've never seen a ghost. But it looked like a totally regular person. Panic wasn't even a word to describe myself at this point. So I ran into my roommate's room and flipped out and woke her up. I told her what was happening, expecting her to think I'm nuts and she wanted to see what I was talking about. When she came with me, the 4th of July food was gone, and the TV was back to normal. She believes me, and we all wondered if this will happen to us again. All I can think is maybe there was a time glitch of some sort. Still freaks me the hell out thinking about it. Yeah, I don't really know how to explain that one, my friend. You should try to find out who lived in your home in 1986. Yeah, I mean, that would be kind of cool though. If I could be in the 80s for like, I don't know, 5 minutes. I think this person should have tried going outside. I mean, but if it were me though, I would probably do the exact same thing and just start wigging out. You know what I mean? Especially if I saw someone walking in my house who was not my roommate. I mean, maybe I would go outside. I would freak out. Run outside. I got a phone call from my girlfriend from an alternate reality. Yesterday at 5 p.m., I was playing the new OG game map on Fortnite when sitting in a Discord call with my friends. Suddenly, I received a missed phone call from a number with no caller ID. Usually, I don't answer calls from unfamiliar numbers, but I was expecting a call from a job I had applied for. Thinking it might be them, I decided to answer. Upon answering the second call from the same no caller ID SFX from Fortnite made it hard to hear at first, so I removed my headset to listen better. The female voice on the other end sounded like my girlfriend, and her tone seemed offended when I asked who it was. To confirm it was her, I inquired about the caller ID, and the response matched how my girlfriend would react if she was genuinely confused. She asked to come over, suggesting a Lyft instead of Uber because of a $5 discount I had for the Lyft ride, and also we share the same Lyft and Uber accounts. Despite being surprised by the accurate details, something felt off, especially since she didn't know the driver was even close by. Slightly suspicious, I bought the Lyft, but then hesitated when she asked for the money instead so she could buy it herself. This led me to consider a potential AI scam, so I canceled the ride, especially since she had mentioned not wanting to come home with me earlier that day. Upon calling my actual girlfriend, she denied making any calls, leaving me puzzled. The bizarre encounter left me contemplating the idea of alternate realities intersecting due to her very accurate responses. So, as no other explanation seemed plausible, perhaps in a different universe, or just an AI scam trying to get money from me. It was too coincidental, though, and someone would have to be stalking me to know those things. Okay, and then he starts talking about alternate universes, but that's an AI scam, my friend. Yeah, I don't know. You were going to answer a job call with your Fortnite game and headset still on. Why do you think he was looking for a job, LOL? Hey, I'm employed, and I play Fortnite. We exist. Okay, let's do another one. My sister came home. I'd like to start by saying that my parents' house has a long history of sporadic, strange events. A few years ago, when I still lived there, I was hanging with my mom in her bedroom. We heard my sister coming home. See, she had a routine. Park her car, open the steel fence, open and slam the front door, throw her keys onto the counter, run to the bathroom, come into my mom's room. We heard it all. I even said, "Ugh, your daughter is here." I was always annoyed by the loudness, and we waited. A few minutes went by, and she didn't come in, so I went to take a look. Her dog was waiting as usual. Outside of the bathroom, the light was off, and the door was slightly open. I stood there, didn't hear a sound, so I knocked a few times. No answer. I got worried and opened the door, but she wasn't there. I went to the kitchen. Her keys weren't on the counter. I kept walking. The front door was locked. I went outside. The fence was closed. No trace of her car. I came back to my mom's room. I don't know how my face looked like, but she immediately asked, "What happened?" I told her she called my sister. She was still at work and would be coming home late. The thing is, something similar happened a few weeks ago. My sister now has a daughter, almost 3 years old. They were hanging in the same room and heard my mom coming home. My niece even said, "Grandma," and they waited. My sister did the same as me and called my mom. She hadn't come home. The top comment says, "It's the dog. That's the part that gets me. Dogs have a sense when one of the human family members will be arriving home a few minutes before arriving." I think maybe there was some astral plane intersection here. A little astral slippage. Mom and sister from one plane were coming home, and they slipped a little That's probably the most reasonable scientific explanation I can think of. Guy is not using words at work when speaking. That's not a glitch in the matrix, that's a regular Tuesday. This happened yesterday and today. I honestly thought I was having a stroke or something. I have an IT internship at a tech company, and one of the people in my office is a little strange, but not in a personality manner. He seems to be well liked, actually. I've noticed yesterday that I do not understand a word that man is saying. Now I know what you think, and no, it's not a different language or an accent. It's straight up not words. I know my way around heavy accents, so if he had one, I could at least understand some words, but I don't. When he talked today, I legit focused in on him, talking for a full minute, and not one word made any sense. And yes, other people talk to him and understand it. An actual conversation I heard today went like this. Guy 1. Hey Guy 2, how are you? How's that project going? Guy 2. Guy 1. Awesome, thanks. You're still down to get food later? Guy 2. More random noises. Guy 1. Alright, Nate, we'll check out the place you recommend. Before anyone tries to say anything racist or whatever, this is a pasty. This is a pasty white dude. This internship ends tomorrow, and I can't stop thinking about it. But what the hell is going on? Top comment says, I knew someone like this who had his tongue removed following cancer caused by smoking. It was almost impossible to understand him at first, but over several weeks I began to pick up on what he was saying. I don't think this comment really applies to this situation though, because number one, this is an internship, so it's probably, more than a few weeks, maybe even more than a few months. So this guy would have been able to pick up on it by now, right? Number two, the writer of this post seems to be saying that he's the only one who can't understand this guy and other people can. So that's what also doesn't make sense. But what doesn't make even more nonsense is that why is he not talking to anybody else in the office about this? Like, is he afraid that they're gonna think he's crazy? I think that he maybe should have taken a video of this guy talking and sent it to a family member, even been like, hey, am I nuts? Or what? Help. But this would freak me out too. Because especially if I'm as I just said, if I'm thinking this and I'm not testing it on anybody else, or I'm not going up to guy number 2 and being like, hey, how do you understand this guy? This doesn't really make any sense, but hey, it is an IT internship with a tech company, so you never know what crazy shit can happen. Open the door to my husband, who didn't move or say anything. This happened this past weekend. I was in the kitchen with my kids, and my husband was outside working on his truck. I heard a knock on the garage door leading to the house, and I looked over and saw the door was unlocked. Sorry, the door was locked. I naturally assumed it was my husband who was trying to get in. I opened the door for him, and he's standing there smiling and holding some tools in his hand. This is where it gets weird. So I said to him, "What the hell was that? Why didn't you just stand there and not say anything or try to come in before?" He claims he never knocked, never stood at the door with tools in his hand. I told him, "Stop getting around," and then he was scaring me, but he swears he never knocked and stood there smiling at the door like that. I was getting upset and told him that if he was messing with me, it wasn't funny. But again, he swears he didn't knock or come to the door. He thinks I hallucinated, but I'm not so sure. Nothing like that has ever happened to me before. Could it be a time glitch, a dream? Even though it was the middle of the day and I was up and walking around, could he have somehow blinked out and then walked over and knocked, but didn't remember? Not sure how to explain it, but it's eerie. Now, I think what's happening here is a bit of an us situation. This person's facing a bit of an us situation. I think that's what's going on. The top comment says, "I'm so glad there are smarter people than me out there. My mind immediately went to, you've got a mimic. Sage that hoe." Instead of seizure. Wait, never mind, guys. Maybe seizure. My toddler fell forward onto the open oven door while I was baking and landed several feet away, completely fine. I don't think I've shared this story here, but this is why I joined this subreddit. And my daughter is 21 now. This happened maybe when she was 2.5 years old. Some could even say 2.5. I was in the kitchen, which was wide open to the living room. Husband was sitting on the couch watching TV, half asleep. Daughter toddling around. I opened the oven door to check on food and turned to get a pot holder out of a nearby drawer. When I turned back, daughter was almost to me and suddenly fell forward with her hands out. I shrieked, "Oh God, help!" to my husband. And in that instant, images flashed through my mind of her landing on it, burning herself horrifically, us going to the emergency room, her being in there for a very long time, her growing older at various stages, covered in horrible burn scars and scar tissue, limiting the movement of her hands on her face, her going through plastic surgery after plastic surgery, her life becoming all about hospitals and surgeries. I felt I lived those lifetimes, all in an instant. Then suddenly I snapped back into the present, and my husband was looking at me saying, "What?" All irritated. And my daughter was on her hands and knees at least 3 feet back from the oven, where she definitely wasn't seconds prior. Definitely in all caps. I said, "She fell and almost landed right here on the oven door." And he said, "She's nowhere near there." And he just took a sip of his beer. I've never, ever forgotten this. It was a defining moment in my parenting life, despite her being my youngest and me living through a lot. I told her about this when she was an adult and she was shocked she didn't remember it happening. And I said, "Well, you wouldn't because somehow you just fell down and toddlers do that a lot." And she's told me a few times since how shaken she felt hearing it now, and how it haunts her, because she feels like that timeline was somehow real and happened, but didn't. I've never been so thankful for a glitch in my life. I've never experienced anything like it, and I still think about it from time to time, and my heart jumps into my throat. I know what happened. There's zero doubt. It is what it is. Now, I read this and I'm thinking, okay, maybe she's just a nervous new parent, right? And she's thinking her daughter's a lot closer than she really is. But the more I read it, I was like, no, she would know. Because even if she's a was not really watching her. He was drinking a beer on the couch. Okay, so I believe her. Yeah. And one of the comments says, I had a similar experience. My son was about a year old, and I heard a sickening smack on the floor in his nursery in the middle of the night. I flew into his room, and he was sitting safely on the floor, smiling at me. It was crazy. Maybe, okay, I think a good explanation of that one is that some other baby, like, accidentally, like, maybe fell into his room. Another astral plane slippage, right? Maybe it was the baby, maybe it was the oven toddler in the story I just read that fell, maybe it fell into the oven and then into the little, this boy's room, and then the little boy was like, what are you doing in my crib? Literally. And he was like, pow, 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 pow. Anyways, alright, this one has a video attachment, so maybe we'll get to prove it. I just saw my husband walk outside to the middle of the yard, but he was actually in bed the whole time, asleep. I even yelled at him twice, trying to speak to him. I was sitting in the separate garage away from the house when this happened. I got up to follow him outside. Nobody. I then went inside expecting to maybe see him on the couch. No, he's snoring in our bed. Door was even closed. What the H? I would love to add the video of me going outside and calling for him afterward, but no media video or even photo uploads here. I will share my after video, blah blah blah. Okay, I found it. Hang on, I didn't fully understand this. So I'm watching the video now, and okay, so it's just the woman going outside, and there's no husband outside. It would have been helpful if she had the footage from maybe 5 minutes before, so we could see evidence of husband, but I'm right now not really seeing any evidence of husband. Maybe it was just someone next door. Maybe it could have been like a burglar or something. Or maybe your husband was just maybe your husband was pranking you. Maybe he went outside and then came back and was pretending to snore. So for the final story, I'm going to read the glitch in the matrix of all glitches in the matrix. The lamp story. If you've been on this subreddit before, then you've most definitely heard this story. It's probably what made you first click on it. I also made a ASMR video, ASMR ambience of this story. It was a really dumb video, but you should go watch it anyway, in my opinion. The official title is A Parallel Life / Awoken by a Lamp. Throwaway account, because this is really personal. My last semester at a certain college, I was assaulted by a football player for walking where he was trying to drive. He was 325 pounds and I was 120 pounds. While unconscious on the ground, I lived a different life. I met a wonderful young lady. She made my heart skip and my face red. I pursued her for months and dispatched a few jerk boyfriends before I finally won her over. After 2 years, we got married, and almost immediately, she bore me a daughter. I had a great job, and my wife didn't have to work outside the house. When my daughter was 2, my wife, bore me a son. My son was the joy of my life. I would walk into his room every morning before I left to work, and doted on him and my daughter. One day while sitting on the couch, I noticed that the perspective of the lamp was odd, inverted. It was still in 3D, but just wrong. It was a square lamp base, red with gold trim on four legs with a white square shade. I was transfixed. I couldn't look away from it. I stayed up all night staring at it. The next morning, I didn't go to work. Something was just not right about that lamp. I stopped eating. I left the couch only to use the bathroom at first. Soon I stopped that too, as I wasn't eating or drinking. I stared at that effing lamp for 3 days before my wife got really worried. She had someone come and try to talk to me. But this time, my cognizance was breaking up and my wife was freaking out. She took the kids to her mother's house, and just before, I had my epiphany. The lamp is not real. The house is not real. My wife, my kids, none of that is real. The last 10 years of my life are not effing real. The lamp started to grow wider and deeper. It was still inverted dimensions. It took up my entire perspective and all I could see was red. I heard voices, screams, all kinds of weird noises, and I became aware of pain. An effing shit ton of pain. The first words I said were, "I'm missing teeth." And I opened my eyes. I was laying on my back on the sidewalk surrounded by people that I didn't know. Lots of them were freaking out. I was completely confused. At some point, a cop scooped me up, dragged me across the sidewalk and grass and threw me face down in the back of a cop car. I was still confused. I was taken to the hospital by a cop. It seems he didn't want to wait for the ambulance to arrive and given CT scans and shit. I went through about 3 years of horrid depression. I was grieving the loss of my wife and children and dealing with the knowledge that they never existed. I was scared that I was going insane, and I would cry myself to sleep, hoping I would see her in my dreams. I never have, but sometimes I see my son, usually just a glimpse out of my peripheral vision. He is perpetually 5 years old, and I can never hear what he says. Never thought any edit 24 hours after this post. Never thought anyone would read this. I changed the line so that it no longer seems that my 2-year-old daughter bore a child. I've never seen Inception or the Star Trek episode so many have mentioned, but I will eventually. I will not do an Ask Me Anything. I've had many PMs describing similar experiences, and 3 posters stating such experiences are impossible. I'd say more research needs to be done on brain functions. Pre-med students, don't assume you know everything. A few have asked if they can write a book /screenplay/stage play, rage comic, etc. Please consider this tale open source and have fun with it. Well, I already open sourced this. As already mentioned, I made an ASMR video of it that probably most people watching it didn't get, including my mom. Anyways, I think that this story could be real, but it also very well could be fake. Something they just wrote and made up. But I still think that it could be real. I feel like we don't know enough about this guy's backstory. I also know that with certain drugs, you can have crazy hallucinations like this, like the crap where it's like, oh, I smoked salvia and I lived 3,000 years as a tree. I mean, maybe you did, I don't know, but that's kind of similar to this, but I don't think this guy was under the influence, or maybe he was and didn't know, but I don't know how he wouldn't know. This is a pretty good story, and I think about it a lot, and I really like to joke with my roommate. I would say to her, I would go like, Sammy, your lamp looks kind of weird right now. Doesn't it look kind of inverted? And she'd be like, shut up. Stop. She doesn't sound like that, but yeah. I mean, I relate to the feeling though, like, dude, you got your wife and kids, happy life. Everything's beautiful, and then you wake up. It's like waking up from a dream. It's like when my roommate is having a dream where she's like, oh my god,
she was telling me about this last night. She was this one guy from ATEEZ, the K-pop group, was her boyfriend, and they were on a date or something, or like, I don't know, they were doing something, and then she woke up and she was sad because, you know, she's not dating the guy from ATEEZ. That I don't remember which one she said. I could look it up, but I'm not going to. I'm sorry for not remembering. It might not have been ATEEZ either. It might have been an Hypen. But her bias is Jake from an Hypen, and I know it wasn't Jake. I'm sure she would have been like beyond